They weren't just thieves. They were the businessmen of the seas. Forget Hollywood's pirates, the wild drunks with parrots on their shoulders. The real pirates. They were entrepreneurs, ruthless ones. They hijacked ships loaded with silver and gold from the New World. They smuggled sugar, rum, and even slaves across continents. They wrote contracts, shared profits, even invented rules that made their ships look more like companies than gangs. And here's the twist. Pirates weren't always enemies of the state. Sometimes, kings and queens hired them. Sometimes, merchants depended on them. And sometimes, entire economies were fueled by them. This isn't the story of skulls and crossbones. This is the untold story of how piracy built global trade. Because pirates didn't just steal treasure. They reshaped the world's economy, one stolen ship at a time. In the 16th and 17th centuries, piracy exploded. European empires were shipping silver, gold, and exotic goods across the Atlantic. And pirates saw opportunity. At first, they were simple raiders. Attack a ship, steal whatever treasure they could, and vanish into the waves. But over time, something changed. Pirates realized that chaos didn't last. If they wanted to survive, if they wanted to get rich, they needed organization. So piracy evolved. Crews began writing contracts, clear agreements on how the loot would be divided. Every man knew his share, from the captain down to the cook. Some even kept ledgers, just like merchants on land. Captains weren't kings. They were elected, chosen by the crew. And if they failed, if they lost too many battles, or put the crew at risk, they could be voted out. That was almost unheard of in the monarchies of Europe. Pirate ships had rules, rules for discipline, rules for punishment, even rules for injury pay. If you lost an arm or a leg in battle, you might receive extra gold as compensation. That's right. Pirates had early forms of insurance. Think about that. While kings ruled with crowns and peasants struggled under taxes, pirates at sea had created something different. A system that was brutal, illegal, but also strangely fair. Pirate ships became floating microeconomies. They rewarded risk, they punished failure, and they gave ordinary sailors more voice than any king or lord ever would. This wasn't just looting. This was business. Dangerous, illegal, but highly profitable business. Piracy wasn't just about gold and silver. It was about trade, and some of that trade was darker than most people realize. Reflective tone. Pirates tapped into global black markets. They smuggled sugar, tobacco, and rum across oceans. They moved stolen silk and spices from Asia, silver from the Americas, and yes, even human lives. Lower tone. The slave trade wasn't run only by kings and merchants. Pirates played their part too. Some captured ships full of enslaved Africans and sold the people at hidden markets. Others acted as transporters, moving slaves between islands and colonies where demand was high. It was brutal, and it was profitable. And it wasn't only slaves. Pirates also carried weapons into places where empires had banned them. They sold stolen goods to colonists at prices cheaper than official merchants. For settlers struggling to survive in the New World, pirate goods were often the only affordable option. Darker tone. This created parallel economies, shadow markets that existed alongside official trade. Empires tried to stop it, but in truth, they often looked the other way. Why? Because pirate trade kept colonies alive. It fed towns with sugar, rum, cloth, and even labor. In the Caribbean, piracy turned ports like Nassau and Tortuga into thriving hubs of underground business. Taverns filled with sailors spending stolen coin, markets overflowing with contraband goods, entire communities living off the pirate economy. So when we talk about piracy, we're not just talking about theft. We're talking about networks, black markets that connected Africa, the Americas, and Europe outside the control of kings. This was piracy's hidden business, not just robbery at sea, but a full-scale economy built on smuggling, slavery, and shadow trade. Not every pirate sailed as an outlaw. Some had papers, some had permission. They were called privateers. A privateer was basically a pirate, but one who worked for a king or queen. Instead of stealing for themselves, they stole in the name of a nation. Take Elizabeth I of England. She gave men like Francis Drake official licenses to raid Spanish ships. On paper, it was legal. In practice, it was piracy with royal backing, and it wasn't small scale. Drake's raids brought back so much treasure. They helped fund England's war against Spain. The crown got rich, the privateers got rich, and Spain lost ships, silver, and power. Privateering was the perfect geopolitical tool. Nations could weaken their rivals without paying for a standing army. If a privateer failed, the king could deny responsibility. If he succeeded, the state took its share of the loot. And it wasn't just England. France, the Netherlands, even the young American colonies all used privateers. It was cheap, effective, and deadly. For merchants and sailors, it was also an opportunity. A royal license meant less risk of hanging if you were caught, and more legitimacy when selling stolen goods. But make no mistake, privateers were still pirates. They burned towns, they robbed ships, they killed crews. The only difference was a piece of paper. This was piracy on a national scale, a shadow navy that blurred the line between commerce, crime, and war. Piracy didn't just change trade, it changed finance. For merchants, sending a ship across the ocean was always risky. Storms, disease, shipwrecks, and then pirates. Imagine you're a merchant in London or Amsterdam. You invest everything in one ship. It carries your cargo of spices, silk, or sugar. If it sinks, you lose everything. If pirates take it, you're ruined. So merchants came up with a solution: insurance. They pooled money together. They paid small fees to spread the risk. If one ship went down, everyone shared the loss. If it returned safely, the profits were divided. This idea gave birth to one of the most powerful financial systems in the world. In London, merchants and shipowners began gathering at coffeehouses to share shipping news and to arrange insurance deals. One of those coffeehouses became famous: Lloyd's, the birthplace of Lloyd's of London, the heart of modern maritime insurance. And why did this industry explode? Because of pirates. Because the threat of piracy was so great. Merchants needed a safety net. Pirates forced global trade to innovate. They didn't just steal treasure. They pushed the world toward financial tools we still use today. So the next time you hear about insurance, remember, its roots lie in storms, shipwrecks, and the fear of the Jolly Roger. By the 17th and 18th centuries, piracy wasn't just random raids at sea. It was part of global trade. Think about it. Pirates connected 3 continents. They raided Spanish silver fleets from the Americas. They smuggled African slaves into Caribbean colonies. They sold stolen Asian spices and silks in European markets. This wasn't chaos. It was networks. Pirates built shadow supply chains that worked alongside official empires. And sometimes, they even worked faster. The Caribbean became the beating heart of this system. Islands like Nassau and Tortuga turned into pirate hubs. Ships came in loaded with contraband and sailed out carrying goods that fed towns, colonies, and even European capitals. The irony: pirates helped fuel the very system that would one day destroy them. As empires grew richer from global trade, they built stronger navies designed to wipe pirates off the map. But by then, the impact was already made. Pirates had accelerated global commerce. They had forced merchants to innovate with contracts, insurance, and risk sharing. They had linked markets from Europe to Africa to the Americas. So when we talk about globalization, we can't forget the role of pirates. They weren't just thieves on the high seas. They were entrepreneurs who pushed trade across oceans and reshaped the early modern world. History remembers pirates as villains, outlaws with eye patches and parrots. But the truth is far more complex. pirates created contracts. They built markets. They even influenced finance. They were thieves, yes, but also entrepreneurs. They fueled global trade. They connected continents. And in their own ruthless way, they helped shape the modern economy. Behind every Jolly Roger flag, there wasn't just fear. There was business. There was profit. There was a system that changed the world. So next time you hear the word pirate, don't just think of skulls and crossbones. Think of merchants. Think of risk takers. Think of the businessmen of the seas. And if you want to uncover more hidden stories of money and power, don't forget to subscribe to Economic Chronicles. Because history isn't just about kings and battles. It's about the economics that built our world.